There is a reason the devil trembles when a believer takes up the rosary. It is not merely a string of beads. It is not just a pious repetition. No, the rosary is a weapon forged in the fires of heaven, blessed by the hands of the Queen of Heaven herself, and sharpened against the forces of darkness who prowl about the world seeking the ruin of souls. Think of this. Every bead is like an arrow of light piercing the shadows. Every Hail Mary is like the swing of a sword, echoing the words of the angel Gabriel and the faithful cry of Elizabeth, a prayer so pure that Satan cannot endure its sound. And when the faithful whisper the name of Jesus again and again, as though chiseling his holy presence into their own hearts, chains are shattered, walls collapse, and the devil's schemes are undone. Why does the enemy fear the rosary? Because it is a prayer that binds heaven and earth together. It is a chain of love linking your soul to Mary and through her directly to Christ. It is the prayer of the humble, the prayer of the poor, the prayer of the soldier in the trenches, the mother at the cradle, the old man in his final hour. And in all these places, whenever the rosary is prayed, the devil flees. Let me tell you a story. Centuries ago, Saint Dominic, weighed down by the heresies tearing apart souls, fell to his knees in desperation. And in that darkness, Mary appeared. She placed in his hands the rosary and told him, "Preach my Psalter, and the world will be converted." From that moment, history changed. Whole armies of error fell silent before the steady rhythm of the rosary. Heretics returned to the faith. The oppressed found courage. The faithful discovered that this prayer was not weak, not optional, but a weapon. And yet this is not merely a tale of the past. Today, too, there are hidden stories, quiet miracles that are never reported on the evening news, but whispered among the faithful. A young man in the grip of despair picks up his grandmother's rosary and finds the strength to choose life instead of ending it. A mother, praying decades through her tears, watches her wayward child finally come home to the church. A family, threatened by division and bitterness, finds their home knit together again by the daily sound of beads slipping through fingers. But if we only look with earthly eyes, we miss the truth. These are not accidents. The rosary is terrifying to the devil precisely because it draws souls into the mystery of Christ. When you pray the rosary, you do not stand alone. You stand at Calvary with Mary. You kneel in Bethlehem as Christ is born. You walk with him through every sorrow, every triumph, every glorious victory. You live the gospel with her, and the gospel lived with Mary is unbearable to the powers of hell. This is why the rosary has been called the weapon of our times, not a weapon of violence or hatred, but of peace and light. Satan works in deception, confusion, despair, but the rosary speaks truth, brings clarity, restores hope. Every time you pray it, even when distracted, even when weary, you are proclaiming again and again that Christ has won, that his mother intercedes, that heaven is stronger than hell. Imagine this with me, somewhere right now. In a dimly lit hospital room, an old woman holds her beads. Her lips move softly. Her voice is almost gone, but the prayer is steady. Hail Mary, full of grace. And though the world does not notice her, all of hell trembles because she is not alone. With her are legions of angels. With her is Mary. With her is Christ. She holds the weapon of heaven, and the victory of love is being won in that room. This is the mystery I want to share with you in this episode. The untold, unseen power of the rosary. Why the devil fears it. Why saints insist upon it. Why ordinary souls throughout history have seen extraordinary results from its faithful use. And as we journey together, you will hear stories, true stories, that may never make the front page, but echo with eternal significance. Because when you pick up your rosary, you are not holding a lifeless object. You are holding a spiritual sword, and the enemy knows it. The year was 1571. The Christian world trembled as the Ottoman fleet, vast, powerful, and determined to crush Christendom, sailed toward Europe. The Mediterranean had become a sea of fear. Armies had been scattered, kingdoms shaken. It seemed inevitable that the cross would fall under the crescent, and the faith of millions would be swept away. But in Rome, a holy old man, Pope St. Pius V, did not turn first to cannons or strategies. He turned to prayer. He summoned the faithful across Europe to take up the Rosary. From peasants in the fields to soldiers on the front lines, from cloistered nuns to little children in villages, the cry arose, "Hail Mary, full of grace." The fleets met at Lepanto on October 7th. The Christian Armada, a ragtag coalition, was outnumbered. The sea roared, the sky darkened with smoke, and the clash of steel echoed across the waves. Yet even as the battle raged, in churches and homes across Christendom, the beads continued to slip through fingers. The Rosary was being prayed with fervor, as if every prayer were another oar striking the sea, every decade another wind filling the sails of the Christian fleet. Then, something extraordinary happened. The winds shifted. A sudden change in the sea's current disoriented the Ottoman ships. Chaos rippled through their lines. The Christian forces, despite being weaker, surged forward with an unexplainable strength. By the day's end, the enemy fleet was shattered, thousands of lives spared, Europe preserved, the Church safeguarded. When word of victory reached Rome, Pope Pius V wept, for he had seen a vision that very day. Mary herself standing over the waters of Lepanto, her mantle stretched wide in protection. He knew then, as the world came to know, that the Rosary had saved Christendom. And to this day, October 7th is celebrated as the feast of Our Lady of the Rosary. Why does this story matter? Because it shows us the Rosary is not only a private devotion, but a cosmic weapon. It is not confined to your living room, your bedside, or your parish pew. When you pray the Rosary, your words join the great chorus of the Church Universal. They ripple across oceans and centuries. They bend the course of history. They summon heaven's intervention in the face of hell's schemes. The devil remembers Lepanto. He remembers how one simple prayer, repeated with love and faith, toppled his designs of conquest. And he fears it still. But Lepanto is not the only battlefield. Fast forward to our own time. A young soldier in World War II found himself stranded behind enemy lines. Hungry, cold, and terrified, he reached into his pocket and found a rosary given to him by his mother. He began to pray. Through smoke and chaos, he prayed. Hours later, he stumbled back to safety, bullets having whizzed past him, yet not a single one touching him. His testimony? "I know it was Our Lady's rosary that saved me. I could feel her presence with me. And perhaps you too have your own battlefield. Perhaps it is not a sea filled with ships or a trench filled with fire, but a hospital room filled with uncertainty, a courtroom filled with fear, a family dinner table filled with tension. These are your Lepantos. And just as surely as Our Lady stretched her mantle over the sailors of 1571, she stretches her mantle over you when you grasp the rosary with faith. Every bead you pray is like calling in heavenly reinforcements. Every Hail Mary is another wave that turns against the enemy. And though you may not see it in the moment, history, your personal history, is being altered by those prayers. The devil who thrives on despair knows this. And so he flees from the rosary, because it is the one thing he cannot twist, cannot corrupt, cannot overcome. This is why saints call the rosary a chain of salvation. St. Louis de Montfort once wrote that it is a chain that binds the sinner to God. Imagine it, every bead like a golden link, fastening you to Mary's hand, fastening Mary's hand to Christ's, fastening Christ's heart to the Father. And so when you hold your rosary, you are holding heaven's lifeline. My friends, Lepanto is not just a story. It is a revelation. A reminder that the rosary is a power the devil fears, not because of the beads, not because of the repetition, but because at its heart is the gospel, the incarnation, the passion, the resurrection, the triumph of Christ. It's a reminder that in your weakest hour, when hell seems certain to triumph, the rosary can turn the tide. And if that was true on the waters of Lepanto, it is true in your life today. If you think the rosary's power belongs only to distant centuries, let me assure you, it is alive today. The devil has not grown less fierce, and the rosary has not grown less powerful. In fact, in our age of confusion and darkness, the rosary shines more brightly than ever, scattering shadows with every Hail Mary. Listen to the testimony of a modern exorcist. Time and again, when the prayers of deliverance rise in the face of demonic torment, one weapon proves especially unbearable to the evil spirits: the rosary. In recorded sessions, demons themselves, compelled by the authority of Christ, have admitted their hatred for this prayer. One snarled, "Every Hail Mary is like a blow to my head." Another, under duress, confessed, "She crushes us. When you say her prayer, we cannot stay." Why such fear? Because the rosary is a litany of truth. Every bead recalls the incarnation, the moment Satan's grip began to break. Every decade repeats the name of Mary, the woman foretold in Genesis who would crush the serpent's head. Every mystery proclaims Christ crucified and risen, the definitive defeat of darkness. The devil hears this again and again and cannot bear it. Consider the story of a young woman plagued for years by spiritual oppression. Nightmares, unexplainable voices, and waves of despair followed her wherever she went. Doctors found no cause. Therapists could not reach her. But one day, a friend placed a rosary into her hands and said, "Pray this with me." At first, the words felt heavy, awkward, but with each bead, something shifted. Peace broke through the suffocating fear. She described it later. "It was as if chains were falling off my soul, one by one, with every Hail Mary I whispered," and she was not alone. Families have reported houses freed from dark presences when the rosary was prayed aloud together. Priests tell of conversions that seemed impossible until a mother's steady rosary stormed heaven day after day. Soldiers returning from combat, burdened with trauma, found solace in Mary's embrace through this prayer. In every corner of the world, hidden miracles are happening, not because of magic in the beads, but because of the mystery they hold. Christ living, suffering, dying, rising, with Mary at his side. Even the enemy acknowledges its power. Saint Padre Pio, who fought constant battles with the devil, called the rosary the weapon. He clutched it in his hands almost constantly, telling his spiritual children, "Love the Madonna and pray the rosary, for her rosary is the weapon against the evils of the world today." He knew firsthand how fiercely the devil attacked, and yet how quickly he fled at the sound of those familiar words. Hail Mary, full of grace. Perhaps you have felt this too. Maybe you have known nights when anxiety clawed at your mind, when fear left you sleepless, when temptation pressed hard upon your heart. And then, almost instinctively, you reached for your rosary. As the beads slipped through your fingers, your racing thoughts slowed, your heart steadied, peace returned. That was not your imagination. That was Mary interceding. That was grace breaking through. That was the devil forced to retreat. Imagine again what happens unseen. Each Hail Mary you whisper is like a bell ringing in heaven, summoning angels to your side. Each Our Father is like a shield lifted before you. Each Glory Be is like a banner raised in victory. When you complete the rosary, you are not merely finishing prayers. You are walking through the entire gospel, tracing every step of Christ's victory, arm in arm with his mother. And the devil, who cannot endure the gospel, who cannot look upon Mary, is driven away. Let us return for a moment to the words of St. John Paul II, a pope who faced the dark shadows of Nazism and communism in his lifetime. He said, "The rosary is my favorite prayer. It is a prayer of great significance, destined to bring peace to hearts and peace among nations." He believed so firmly in its power that he urged the whole church, take up this spiritual weapon with renewed fervor. Why? Because he had seen what you and I must believe. The rosary is not old-fashioned, not optional, not ineffective. It is dynamite in the hands of the faithful. It terrifies hell itself. And so, as you listen to these testimonies, exorcists watching demons tremble, young souls freed from oppression, saints carrying their beads like swords, ask yourself, do I believe in the power of this prayer? Do I wield it with faith or let it lie forgotten? Do I realize that in my hands rests the very weapon that can change my life, protect my family, and pierce the darkness of the world? The devil fears the Rosary because it brings light where he spreads shadow. It calls on Mary where he sows despair. It lifts up Christ where he seeks to enthrone himself. And if you take up your beads with love, you will find what countless souls have found before you, that even in the darkest nights, the Rosary shines like dawn. If the devil fears the Rosary because it drives him away, he fears it even more because it brings souls home to God. The Rosary is not only a defense, it is an invitation, a doorway through which hearts encounter the living Christ. When Mary takes your hand in prayer, she leads you to her Son. And when a soul meets Christ in this way, hell trembles. Because its grip has been broken, let us consider the testimony of Blessed Bartolo Longo, one of the most striking conversions in church history. He began his life as a young man consumed with pride and despair. Drawn into the dark world of the occult, he even became a satanic priest for a time. But darkness cannot hold forever when the light of prayer draws near. One day, Bartolo encountered a holy Dominican friar who told him simply, "If you seek salvation, spread the Rosary." Those words pierced his soul. He picked up the beads he once mocked and with trembling lips began to pray. Slowly, the chains of the enemy fell away. His despair gave way to hope. His hatred gave way to love. Today, he is remembered as the Apostle of the Rosary, the very man who built the great Basilica of Our Lady of the Rosary in Pompeii. Is it not astonishing? A man once in the service of the devil became one of the greatest witnesses to the Rosary's power. And why? Because Mary's prayer carries the mercy of her Son even into the darkest hearts. Another story, closer to our time, a soldier returning from war, broken by what he had seen, turned to alcohol and violence. His family fell apart. His nights were restless, haunted by images of death. Then one evening his mother, an old woman with calloused hands and weary eyes, handed him her Rosary. "Take it," she said, "and just hold it if you cannot pray it." That night, unable to sleep, he rolled the beads between his fingers. Something in him broke open. The tears he had held back for years finally poured out. He began haltingly, "Hail Mary." By morning, he had finished all 5 decades, and for the first time in years, he slept in peace. That man later testified, "The Rosary saved me when nothing else could. It gave me my life back, do you see? The Rosary does not merely guard against evil, it heals the wounded soul. It is not only a shield, but also a balm. The devil fears it because with each prayer, Christ's mercy touches broken lives, and where mercy reigns, Satan has no power. Consider also the quiet conversions, the ones the world may never hear about, but heaven records with joy. A young mother, struggling with postpartum depression, finds strength in clutching her beads during sleepless nights, whispering prayers through her tears. An elderly man, estranged from the church for decades, begins to pray the Rosary again at his wife's insistence, and one day feels the courage to enter the confessional after 40 years. A teenager, battling loneliness and anxiety, discovers peace each evening by praying a decade before bed. None of these stories may make headlines, but they shake hell, because each soul is drawn back into God's embrace. The Rosary is conversion written in prayer. Each mystery is like a window into Christ's saving love. The joyful mysteries remind us of God's humility, that he entered our world to walk with us. The sorrowful mysteries reveal his sacrifice, that he gave his very life to redeem us. The glorious mysteries proclaim the victory of his resurrection, the promise that death does not have the final word. The luminous mysteries reveal his light shining through the sacraments and his preaching. When a person prays these mysteries, even without fully understanding, the truths of the gospel soak into the heart. Grace begins to work silently, steadily, until at last conversion blooms. The devil dreads this process. He fears the Rosary because it is slow but unstoppable. He may try to whisper, "You're wasting your time. You do not feel anything. You are only repeating words." But those words are lies. Every Hail Mary is a seed. Every decade is water. Every rosary is sunshine breaking through the clouds. And over time, the barren soil of the heart bursts into life. Souls are converted. Families are restored. Holiness takes root. Perhaps you are listening now and thinking, but I am weak. My prayers are distracted. My rosary is often rushed. Do not be discouraged. Remember Bartolo Longo, who began in the darkness of occult worship. Remember the soldier who started with nothing but the act of holding beads in his hand. Remember the elderly man who prayed decades after years of silence. Mary does not despise your weakness. She takes it and leads it to Jesus. The devil would love for you to give up because you feel unworthy. But Mary wants you to begin, even with the smallest step. The Rosary has been called a school of prayer, and truly it is. With every repetition, your heart learns the rhythm of grace. With every mystery, your soul draws nearer to the truths of faith. And in time, without even realizing it, you begin to change. Your thoughts are purified, your heart softens, your courage grows. That is why conversions happen through the Rosary, not sudden explosions, but gentle dawns. The devil cannot stand this dawn. He prefers souls that remain in night, but Mary always leads toward the sunrise. So let us ask ourselves, am I willing to let the Rosary change me? Am I ready to give Mary permission to take my hand and guide me toward her Son? If yes, then know this: you are holding in your hands the very weapon that terrifies hell and the very lifeline that draws heaven close. The Rosary converts not only individuals, but also nations. Great battles have been turned, revolutions softened, and societies healed through this prayer. But before we speak of that, pause for a moment. Think of your own soul, your own story. What needs to be healed? What sin must be overcome? What fear must be cast out? Whatever it is, the Rosary can carry it to Christ. And when He touches it, everything changes. Up until now, we have reflected on personal stories. Hearts set free, souls healed, lives transformed. But the Rosary is not only a weapon for individuals. It is a prayer that has shifted the course of nations, turned back invasions, and preserved entire peoples from destruction. This too is why the devil trembles when the beads are taken up. The Rosary does not merely defend one soul, it has power to defend the whole body of Christ. Think first of the year 1571, the Battle of Lepanto. The Christian world stood in peril. The Ottoman Empire threatened to engulf Europe, and many feared Christendom would be erased. But Pope St. Pius V, a humble Dominican and man of deep prayer, called the faithful to a weapon stronger than cannons or swords: the Rosary. Across Europe, churches filled with men, women, and children praying decade after decade. On the morning of October 7th, as battle raged at sea, the Christian forces were outnumbered. But as the sun set against all odds, victory belonged to them. The Holy League's triumph was so decisive that it was credited to the intercession of Our Lady of the Rosary. From that day forward, October 7th has been celebrated as the Feast of Our Lady of the Rosary, a reminder that this prayer is no mere devotion, but a force that shapes history. But Lepanto is not the only time the Rosary turned the tide. In the 20th century, in the Philippines, during the People Power Revolution of 1986, millions of faithful gathered on the streets, armed not with violence, but with rosaries. As tanks rolled toward them, they knelt in prayer, clutching their beads. Soldiers, seeing the people unarmed but radiant with peace, stopped. The tanks did not fire. The revolution ended without the river of blood that was expected. Historians puzzle over it. The faithful know it was Mary's rosary that shielded her children. Then there is the story of Austria after World War II. At the end of the war, Soviet troops occupied Austria, and many believed the nation would fall permanently into communist control. But a Franciscan priest, Father Petrus Pavlicek, inspired by Our Lady of Fatima, called the people to pray the rosary daily for their country's liberation. Thousands joined. For 7 years, processions of rosaries wound through the streets. Then in 1955, without a single shot fired, the Soviets withdrew, something unprecedented in all of Eastern Europe. Austria was free. To this day, the faithful remember that the Rosary was their weapon of peace. The devil knows these stories well. He fears them because they show what happens when the people of God unite with Mary in prayer. Battles are won, dictatorships fall, nations are saved. The Rosary is a chain that binds evil, a net that catches grace, a chorus that rises from earth to heaven and calls down divine intervention. But these victories are not confined to history books. They continue now. When families gather to pray the Rosary together in their homes, the atmosphere changes. Quarrels soften, grudges are healed, hearts turn toward forgiveness. When parishes commit to the Rosary, conversions multiply, vocations flourish, communities find strength against despair. When nations rediscover this prayer, peace takes root. Do you see why the devil fears it? The Rosary builds a fortress, stone by stone, bead by bead, where Christ reigns and Satan cannot enter. Perhaps you ask, can my little prayer really matter that much? Remember, every Hail Mary is a stone in the wall of this fortress. Alone it may seem small, but together, millions, even billions of them. It becomes unshakable. Your Rosary today unites with those prayed centuries ago at Lepanto, those prayed on the streets of Manila, those prayed in Austria. Altogether, they form a great symphony of faith that echoes through the ages, stronger than any empire, louder than any weapon, more enduring than any ideology. And so, dear friend, as we conclude this meditation, let us not forget the Rosary is feared in hell because it is loved in heaven. It is simple enough for a child to pray, yet powerful enough to topple tyrants. It is repetitive, yes, but so is the beating of the heart. It is humble, but so is the gospel itself. And it is Marian. But Mary always leads us to Christ. Now take your Rosary in hand. Look upon those beads worn smooth by countless fingers, shining with hidden grace. Know that in your hands rests a weapon of love, a shield of peace, a chain that binds the devil, and a bridge that leads you straight into the heart of God. Do not let it gather dust. Do not leave it in a drawer. Pick it up. Pray it. Live it. For when you do, you join the countless saints, the humble faithful, and the armies of heaven who wield this prayer as a light against the darkness. And perhaps one day, your own story will be added to this great tapestry. Perhaps one day someone will say of you, their Rosary saved me. Their prayer brought me home. Their beads helped change the world. The devil fears the Rosary because it is the prayer of saints, the cry of sinners, the hymn of the Church, and the beating heart of Mary, leading us closer and closer to Jesus. So let us pray it with faith, with courage, and with the confidence that through it, the victory is already won.